My father was a Denver police officer, and growing up, those were my idols. His friends would come around the house, hearing the stories, and it's what I wanted to do. My brother wanted to be a police officer, and we went off to college. Both after college decided we want to be Denver cops. Once I got on the job, I really enjoyed being a street officer and working patrol. One of my lieutenants asked me if I wanted to test for the SWAT team. So I ended up taking the test, and I did pretty well, and I got selected. And then once I was there, I didn't want to leave. It was just constant training. It was being on a team again that I really enjoyed. 26 guys out of 1,500 police officers on the department, and I felt privileged to be on that team. I was mowing the lawn, and my wife came out and flagged me down and said, "Hey, something's going on over at the park." Went in the house, grabbed my police radio, and started hearing this citywide call for help. And I told my wife, "I gotta go." And I really had no idea what was going on other than something big at the park, and they needed a bunch of help. Ran out to the truck and jumped in. I had a toolbox in the back that had all my equipment. Obviously, I grabbed my guns from inside the house. And on the way there, the dispatchers were telling us that there was 6 to 8 gunmen in the school, 25 kids had been killed, and information was coming in. As I'm driving up towards the front doors, I just see chaos. I didn't see a command post. Didn't know who was in charge, what was going on. So the information was coming in slow, but we were getting a lot of misinformation as well. The dispatchers would get information saying, "I have 2 shooters over here. I have 2 shooters here. I have 2 shooters in the cafeteria, 2 in the front office." So that information was compiled together, and that's where the 6 to 8 gunmen came into place. Obviously, with people, the kids and teachers seeing casualties and people being injured from gunfire, that number escalated as well, up to 25. We ended up waiting for a fire truck to try to use as cover because there was no cover. With the information of the sniper on the roof, it'd be pretty hard to clear that open ground without some type of concealment or cover. So we waited around there for some time until this one fireman stepped up, said, "I'll drive that truck." He was driving us up, and we were walking behind it with the intentions of going up towards the front door and making entry. So as we're staging to go in there, they pull the door, and I go in, and I could almost feel my knees shaking. It's like, this is the real deal. And once that started, we just started moving down the hallways and starting to clear rooms and got back into my game. The problem we had in there was the fire alarm was going off, and you couldn't hear each other, you couldn't really talk to each other. So as we were clearing hallways, our philosophy was just push forward, try to find what's going on. But we weren't hearing what you typically would hear in an active shooter, is bullets going off and people screaming. It was pretty quiet as far as people yelling. That we weren't hearing that. People were hiding at that point. And normally you put 2 operators in a room, but we got spread out pretty thick. There were some doors that were locked, couldn't get into, so we'd move to the next room. If the door was open, we'd go in and clear that room by ourselves. You saw backpacks, you saw kids' shoes, like they ran out of their shoes. You saw, it was just debris everywhere. It was like, oh my gosh, these kids actually ran out of their shoes that day and left everything behind. And it was just kind of, at that point you're starting to see the totality of this. And it came over the radio that the kids could hear us. At that point, we started looking for locked doors. But at one point, I actually took a long folding table, folded up the legs, and used that as a ram and started busting these doors down. They started clearing the library. We had cleared the auditorium. I never made my way down to the cafeteria, but apparently there was nobody down in there. That bomb had not exploded, thank God. But you could see where they had thrown those around to, intimidate, if not try to hurt the kids. But they were around, spent ones. We had cleared that whole band area and that arts and crafts area, and we kind of came out, I think, in the main hall down by where the library was. You could just tell that something wasn't right there. So our team went in and just double checked, and that's where Klebold and Harris were, but all the victims that were in that library, they were in there. looked down at Klebold and Harris. I looked at their guns. They were very low quality weapons, their weaponry. I looked at them and I thought to myself, how could you two have me so scared? How could you take me out of my element for just a second or 5 seconds when I got better training, better equipment, better teammates, and obviously a better head on my shoulders? I remember walking out of there and they had some other teams coming in. And with that initial information, we weren't totally sure it was just 2 of them, but after we had saw what they had done to themselves and taken themselves out of the fight, I think most of us were pretty sure there wasn't a third one. But I remember walking past one of the teams that was coming in, and I think they saw us and they were like, oh my gosh. And it was just devastating. I was drenched with sweat, just tired. I think we were in that building probably 2.5 hours searching. I just went back to my truck and went home. Thought I was just gonna hang out with the family, and they said, "Come, you gotta come over here and make a statement." And that's where all the families were, looking for their kids, their missing kids. Horrible, horrible scene, not knowing where your kids are. So we had to go in, past them, go in, get our statements and write them. I figured we all be questioned and debriefed afterwards, and I never had to make another statement. I still live where I lived at the time. So I've lived in this community since it happened. A lot of bad memories in the community, a lot of wish we could have done more. There was times when I wasn't proud to say I was there, because everybody was, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, a lot of misinformation. There was part of me that just wanted to say, hey, I wish you could realize what we tried to do and that we weren't sitting around. And I know that the whole process took longer than it should have. And if it helps, we're trying to do better in the future for everybody else. We've taken a step forward to fix this as much as we can. Columbine had great response. A lot of people were there very quickly. But we stood around. We didn't do what we needed to do. And that was not anybody's fault at the time. That was what we were trained to do. You got there, you contain the perimeter, you negotiate almost to failure, and then you send the SWAT team in. That's what everybody's trained to do. That doesn't work when somebody's shooting and taking lives. You gotta cowboy up and go do something. I think the public, feels like they don't know what happened inside the building. They just know what they saw on the cameras and live that day and people standing around. They don't know what was going on the inside, is how hard the guys inside were trying to, 1, find the shooters, 2, save lives, and 3, stop this. So they never got to see that. We didn't get to talk about it. I think the best thing that came out of Columbine was we did something. The worst thing is we didn't do it fast enough.